Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering Thomas Tuchel being in negotiations to become the next England manager. We'll discuss the Brazil-Chile game. We touched on it a little bit when we did the CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers roundup yesterday, but we'll go a little bit more in depth with Brazil's Last-Gasp win over Chile. We'll discuss the USMNT taking on Panama in their first match with Pochettino. We'll preview that game. We'll recap some of today's international fixtures. Not gonna say we'll recap everything, specifically the Uruguay game in South America when Uruguay played Peru, and then some Nations League, UEFA Nations League fixtures. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show. I'll be giving you my reactions to some of the top headlines in the soccer world. Before we start off, if you have a question during the show, we want to hear it. Your input is a big part of what makes the show successful, and we thrive on your energies and insights. Whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or an opinion you just have to share, don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. And if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's also an easy way to do that. Use the super chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. There's an easy way to do that. Use the super chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking, hit that super chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can also go to the gsmcpodcast.net to tip, donate, and leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're extremely grateful to have you as part of our community. We do have to start off though with Thomas Tuchel. There's reports coming out that he is apparently in negotiations with England. He's apparently in negotiations with England to become their next manager. There was also other reports that said they're in talks. Some are saying they're in advanced talks. There's a lot of, not conflicting reports, but one is saying he's negotiating, the other saying they're in advanced negotiations, But yes, it seems like Thomas Tuchel is potentially keen on the England job. It seems like England, after that, I don't know how you can, turn around from that, how the way this is going down, if you're looking at it from a neutral perspective, it's a little embarrassing for England. So they have this manager in Lee Carsley. There's no talks really about bringing in that new manager. There's some talk here and there, but there's nothing breaking there. As soon as something surprising happened, a really bad performance, bad loss to Greece, now suddenly they're keening on a player. Is that the knee-jerk sort of way that a federation should be run? It seems like that now. Maybe from the outside, it's just coincidental, unlucky that this is how it went. But if you're looking at it from this perspective, I mean, immediately after the Greece game, okay, now they're in negotiations with Thomas Tuchel. Is just, really? Is that how knee-jerk this federation is? How knee-jerk this federation is ran? And it's really a bad look. And now Thomas Tuchel coming in. Thomas Tuchel is a world-class manager. There's no two ways about that. What he has accomplished at the club game at the highest level, seeing what he did at Chelsea, Dortmund, PSG, he's an accomplished manager, and he's been able to get the best out of some talent within teams. He got PSG to Champions League final that they can't really sniff with since he's left. He won a Champions League with Chelsea, and he got them team that was in disarray. There was a reason why Lampard got sacked. He got them into the top four that year, and dragged them into the top four. So there is benefits with him, and the cup competition thing that's a real thing in the fact that he is a brilliant manager in the cups. He's a really, really good manager in cup competitions. What he's done in the Champions League, specifically with Chelsea, with PSG, he's had a good. He reached the semifinal as well with Bayern. He was a minute away from taking Bayern to the final. This past year, despite all the turmoil that was going around with Bayern at the time, he already announced at that point that he wasn't gonna be the Bayern manager the following year. It shows how chaotic it was at that time period at Bayern Munich, and he took that team to a Champions League quarterfinal. Semifinal, and I knew that sounded wrong. Not only he took them to a semifinal, but they were one moment away from potentially reaching a few minutes away from potentially reaching the final. He's been able to manage these cup competitions really well, and let's face it, international football, it's all cups, all the big trophies, it's all competitions. That's mostly the gist of international management, is being a good cup manager, and you can be a very successful international manager. So there's that going with it. Now is the thing. Now is the other aspects of it where you're thinking, look, does Thomas Tuchel want to take the England job now? He's not English, okay? So, that's one aspect of it. It's not like another, like an Eddie Howe who might have an emotional connection with England being English. There's that aspect of it. There's also the aspect of it. Does Thomas Tuchel want to go away from the day-to-day of managing international football? Of managing club football. Does he want to go? Does he want to go away from that day-to-day? Does he want to deal with the English press, the English media, the English expectations, having to adapt to this new national team? And as a German, coaching the English is going to be different. It's different culture, different norms of playing football with England. And is that something that he's going to be willing to adapt to, And I think, if you're looking at it though from from Thomas Tuchel, there's a lot of talent in this team. So that's a big initiative. There's a lot of talent in this team. And there's and some players that he's worked with. If you look at Harry Kane, Reece James potentially making, if he can get his way back into fitness, as someone that's going to be involved in these squads going forward. Apart from that, I'm trying to think. There's actually not much players. He didn't manage Mason Mount at Chelsea, but this is a Mason Mount that's far from an England call-up at this point right now in his career. But there's players though that he's familiar with, players that he managed against in the Premier League, and he knows the language, and he does talk about whenever he was at Bayern, when he compared the love he had at managing in England compared to managing in Germany, it was two different things. So I don't know. Look, I think overall it's a big upgrade over Gareth Southgate. There's no arguing that you got a manager that has a better tactical way about him. I think Thomas Tuchel doesn't deal with the BS nonsense. He's a very demanding coach, and he'll demand of the players. He'll demand the work ethic. He'll demand this. He'll demand that. I think tactically he'll set them up. I think he has the ability on the fly in these high pressurized tournament moments to make those cutthroat decisions in game to adjust, to do this, to do that. I go back to his first his 1 month into his tenure at Chelsea, even a little bit less than a month, he puts on Callum Hudson-Odoi and then he takes him off within a span of 25 minutes or so in the second half. That cutthroat, demanding nature to him, not being scared to make the big decisions, I think will help him in these high pressurized moments in tournaments, specifically the World Cup 2026 down the line. So I think that's a positive as well. I do think the one thing that that Gareth Southgate did really well, that Thomas Tuchel I don't think he'll be able to manage as well as Gareth Southgate, is the whole press, is the whole outside of the football aspect of it. How Gareth Southgate always said the right things at the right time in the press, how he kept everything in the camp cool, he kept the environment cool, he kept it overall a stable and functioning work environment, and after a period where it really hasn't been for a long time for England. The one thing with Thomas Tuchel is there's no ownership when it comes to that. England, they have an FA and all that, but still Thomas Tuchel, he's had multiple fallouts with higher ups within the past two organizations he worked with. In terms of the media, he's decent with the media, but again, with the pressure of the English media and how cutthroat that they can be, that's something that could go a little bit the wrong way as well. When it comes to the footballing things, I think Thomas Tuchel obviously is a big upgrade. When it comes to everything outside of that, I do think it's something that he will find a challenge managing the England national team. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll do a full reaction to Brazil's Last-Gasp, much needed win over Chile.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we discussed Thomas Tuchel being in negotiations to become the next England manager. We move on to do a full reaction to Brazil's Last-Gasp, much needed win over Chile, the Chilean national team, who are currently sitting second to the bottom. Now they're sitting at the bottom actually, because Peru just beat Uruguay today. But they were sitting second to bottom before this game. Now they're sitting at bottom in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying, and it took Brazil a last minute winner to get past Chile. And that was disappointing yet again. It was a relief because obviously this was a much needed victory for Brazil. I mean, I think the whole country would have had a civil war if Brazil managed to not to get 3 points in this game. I really do think it would have been a civil war in Brazil, but they got it. It was much needed because you're looking at the standings, and you're almost looking at it. You're almost looking at it in an embarrassing point of view when you see that you only have 3 wins in the first 8 games. it's just not good enough for the standards of Brazil. And now you see that you get Chile and Peru, the two bottom feeders right now in CONMEBOL. You're thinking, okay, this is the chance to finally build some momentum. A clear, easy 6 points, and you can start building something going forward and, release some of the, tension and, and the pressure off of you so that, you can buy a little bit more time to start developing this team into a team that can be very hard to play against in the World Cup. But the disappointing part of it was that after a very disappointing loss to Paraguay, seeing again how flat this Brazilian team came out straight off the bat with Eduardo Vargas putting them into the lead with a really good header, but it literally in the second minute of the game, and you're just thinking, oh my goodness, Brazil away to Chile, already down 1-0, the crowd going crazy in Santiago. Brazil hasn't played good football in a very long time now, since probably the 2022 World Cup. This is trouble. And also another thing is Brazil is down 1-0 in this game majority of the game. They're chasing a result throughout the entire game, and they never looked overly threatening, never looked lively, never created many clear-cut opportunities, looked a little flat. Rafinha didn't get involved as I expected him to do, didn't look like a shell of the player that we've seen up to this point in Barcelona. Same with Rodrigo, didn't really get involved, didn't really take advantage when the opportunities came, which was little half chances here and there. I thought Savinho had a few good runs. He made a run and he actually crossed it to Igor Jesus, who got the equalizing goal. It was a much needed goal before that break because it relieved some of the pressure in having to chase two goals in that second half just to get a win. Getting that equalizer right before the half almost, stoved off a little bit of pressure, I guess. I think in the second half, Brazil were a little better. I thought they controlled the game. Didn't really create too many opportunities, didn't look lively, but they controlled the game, and they were really the only team that had any opportunity to get a goal, even though they didn't really look like scoring themselves. It was in general a really bad game, really dull, boring to watch. Really, really is a type of game that you're watching, whether you're a neutral, if you're neutral, you're gonna be falling asleep in the middle of the game. Really boring game to watch. No liveliness in the game, no cutting edge, no real speed of play, no real clear-cut opportunities. I see good defending on both sides. I thought some of the Chilean defenders defended really, really well for their lives. I thought Gabriel Magalhaes played probably his best game that he played for Brazil. I think Marquinhos also played a solid game. He's been a little bit under fire as well. Yeah, eventually the winner came, and it was Botafogo's Luis Enrique, who took advantage of an opportunity. He was able to take home a nice curling strike right from the edge of the box, and it was a rescue moment for Brazil, because that 3 points was more than needed. It was starved for. It wasn't just needed. They were starving for this result. If this result didn't come, then I still don't think it would have put Brazil in much danger to miss the World Cup, with now 6 teams going through automatically and another team having a chance at Interconfederation playoff. But at the same time, not reaching the World Cup, that's a whole different level of just disgrace. But this is still in a form of a disgrace, and the performances game in, game out so far through 9 games, having the same amount of wins and losses, 4 wins, 4 losses, and a draw. It's still really hard to watch these performances as well, even in the scary part is they're dropping points, they're losing these games, they're losing 4 games, but even in the games that they're winning so far, they're looking more than unconvincing, very hard to watch. This game that they won, it was really unconvincing win. Last international window when they beat Ecuador, unconvincing win. When they defeated the likes of when they defeated Peru, at Lima, unconvincing. This time about last year. I think the only convincing win came up to this point when they defeated the likes of I believe they took on Bolivia. Yeah, they took on the Bolivian team right before actually that game against Peru, and they defeated them 5-1. But this game was played in Brazil, and we all know Bolivia away from home and Bolivia at home is completely different. Is a completely different national team. Bolivia. Bolivia, they take advantage of that, atmosphere that they have playing at home. But when they go away, they prove that they probably are the worst team in CONCACAF that just has a crazy home field advantage. You see what they did at Copa America, how they got dismantled by the US, Uruguay, and Panama. All 3 games, they were second best by a long shot. It tells you the story there. And that's the only team that Brazil has been able to beat convincingly so far. The rest of the 3 wins that they got has been unimpressive, dull victories that the only thing that, if you're a Brazilian fan, that you could be happy about after the game is the fact that the 3 points was secured, because the performances was not good enough. And I don't want to be too overly critical of a team that won 2-1, but again, there's nothing to be, you don't come out of that game thinking Brazil are on the right foot going forward. No, you come out of that game thinking Brazil is lucky and they're still crap. They're still a hard team to watch. And just bringing back Neymar, which, yes, that would be a great addition, especially if he can be a resemblance of a player that he was before the torn ACL. Bringing back Neymar is not going to fix the issues. It's not going to turn this dull team that has no real Brazilian flair into a dominant team. And I've been thinking, defensively, I think despite the weaknesses at fullback, I think defensively they're not a team that concedes goals left and right. Defensively, I think they're solid. They're not great. They could be better, but they're solid. I always blame this team though. I always blame some of these individuals that play at Brazil, that play for their top teams like Vinicius, Rodrigo, Rafinha, the attackers. I blame them a lot, but I think it's time to hand some blames in the midfield, because if there's one portion of this team that is a shell of what the great Brazil looked like, it is that midfield. Lucas Paquetá. What is he good at? Yes, Pep Guardiola wanted him, and apparently that raised the level of what should be expected of. But what is his value to this Brazilian national team? Game in, game out, he is a starter, and he's looked at as an important, pivotal part of Brazil. But why is he pivotal? Why is he pivotal? Today, they against Chile, they went with the midfield pivot of Paquetá and Andre, and they were so bad that they both got subbed off at halftime. Have you seen that before? I thought Bruno Guimarães coming on gave you a little bit of more control. Bruno Guimarães and Gerson came in on, gave you a little bit more control in the midfield. But it's still, the quality is not what we used to be at that midfield position. And I think that is an alarming sign going forward. I think, they really need Douglas Luiz to, take that next step at Juventus, because I think, he needs to be that answer in midfield for Brazil, because they lack that player playing deep. and the attacking midfielding role, I think Neymar could cover that depending on how Dorviela wants to operate him. But depending on where Dorviela wants to play him, then that might be a hole as well for Brazil. But yeah, there's a lot of holes though. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will preview USMNT Panama.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we did a full reaction to Brazil's Last-Gasp win over Chile. We move on to discuss USMNT taking on Panama. And I want to discuss what we are looking forward to in US's first game under Mauricio Pochettino. This is, in my opinion, one of the most anticipated, not just game, but probably set of games in this international window since for me, probably since the Nations League, the first Nations League semifinal and final window ever. That was, because COVID happened and we had a long period of no international football. I think that break coming back was the first time, number one, we've seen the USMNT in a while, and the first time that USMNT has been in a trophy, winning opportunity in a very, very long time. When they were, that was Berhalter's first chance in that Nations League to win something. Some of these young players that we've seen thrive at the European level, it was their first camp all coming together because of, there was a lot of build-up with the whole COVID and not seeing the national teams play for a very long time. I think this has been my most anticipated camp since then. Obviously, excluding the World Cup. Obviously, I got that. I ignored that part because, it's obvious the World Cup is much bigger than every other international break times, like all combined together, multiplied by 10, and then square rooted. No, square rooted is, that's divided. Then exponent. You know what? I'm not even gonna go what I was gonna say. Just know World Cup is the most important, obviously. But going back to what I was saying though, this is something I am looking really forward to this international break because we now, as U.S. men's national team fans, we have hope going forward. We lost that hope with Berhalter. Some of us lost it before the World Cup. I lost it about the beginning of it used to be called the hexagonal. Then it was the octagonal. I lost my hope in the beginning there, probably a little bit before, in that period. I gave them a little bit of benefit of doubt because we won a few trophies and we went and won our, a trophy with the B team. But I knew the football was dull. Some of the decision making was poor. But then when we reached the whenever the octagonal happened, I believe we had one really poor result. I know we went up to Honduras and we got a big win, and that Ricardo Pepi saved Greg Berhalter's job, but there was a really bad loss that we suffered before that. I forgot who it was too. I'd have to search it up. It was either a bad loss or a bad, performance, bad drop points. I forgot exactly who it was too. But that was when I first started, losing hope in Berhalter, like in a massive way. Oh yeah, we drew to Canada 1-1 in the opening game of the octagonal. We drew to Canada, and then and we drew that game at home at Nissan Stadium, and wow, there was a lot of pressure on him in that Honduras game just because of one dropped result. Really. I think we did a little bit poor in the. No, we also drew to El Salvador in the opening game. Yeah, we had 2 points in the first two. Yeah, that's what it was. We had 2 points in the first two games. We drew to El Salvador, and then we drew to Canada, and then we needed some sort of result against Honduras, so we got it then. And ever since then, I've lost hope in Berhalter, and slowly, my love for the national team was dwindling. Not love, the love never dwindles, but the hope is dwindling. When the hope dwindles, then you're almost have a numbness. Now I have an excitement. I'm looking forward. It's all guns blazing with this team. All guns blazing. And going up against Panama, and yes, it's not the most fierce opposition, but we know as the host of the World Cup, we need to get games in, and it's hard, especially at this time with a lot of teams focusing on qualifiers, not just for the World Cup, but also for, the Confederation Cups like the AFCON. You have qualifiers, World Cup qualifiers going on. You have Nations League games going on. It's hard to find, worthy international opponents. You see Mexico's taking on Valencia, a club team. But it's still an opportunity for us to get to see this U.S. team under Pochettino, and it's not going to be the first team. It is the first team, but it's the first team of what's available with a lot of injuries being suffered. But again, I look at that as just an opportunity now for some of these other players that normally wouldn't have gotten the opportunity if it wasn't for some of these injuries to really impress and to show Mauricio Pochettino what they can do. But overall, I'm just looking at some of the patterns of play. Do we start seeing it from the minute one? What do we see tactically? Do we see all guns out the Pochettino way, high intensity, pressing from the front, playing a higher block, trying to play the game on the opposition half, being able to control the possession of the game, and as soon as you lose the ball, be able to go and quickly win the ball back? Do we see those little tidbits of how Pochettino wants to play? Do we see that from the game one? Can we see that from the get-go? Especially going up against an opposition in Panama, in which the U.S. should be able to do that. The U.S. should be able to press up high and still be able to defend well. They should be able to win the ball back as soon as they lose the ball. They should They should be able to play in the opposition half. They should have the understanding and the ability to play out of the back going up against Panama. And it's a good way to ease Pochettino ease Pochettino's tactics into the team, going up against not the strongest in oppositions. And Panama's not the worst team or anything. Panama beat the U.S. and eliminated them from the Copa America, essentially in that second game. So Panama is a team to be respected. But yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to from Pochettino. I want to see. You could almost tell if the manager has that control from the get-go. I want to see what the feel is like. Something you can't explain. You're just watching the game and you can tell it's a well-coached, well-oiled team, and the manager, and they have the attention of the manager, and they're fighting for the manager, and they don't want to disappoint the manager, and they don't want to, potentially lose their job. So there's a lot to look forward to. Also think, not just in this game with Panama, we have something to look forward to going away to Mexico in a hostile crowd. Can we continue to play the way that Pochettino played against Panama? Does he deploy a similar tactical approach going up against Mexico, or does he try to change it up because of the opposition? I want to see the tidbits. I want to see everything. I want to hear Mauricio Pochettino also after the games, the post-game interviews. What does he have to say about it? How expecting of it? Does he, did he know what he was coming into with these U.S. players? Did he, because we know that this is not the most talented team he managed, but did he have a good understanding of what does he actually have? And also, big thing I want to know is whether he continues to, whether playing out of the back is an important part of Pochettino or not. We'll see this. If it's something he's willing to adapt of, because I think it is. With the personnel we have, our center halves are not the best on the ball, especially if you don't include Tim Ream. And then the goalkeepers, we have no goalkeeper that can play out of the back besides Zach Steffen, who is not a shot stopper. But if you have to be honest, we don't really have a good shot stopper at this period. With what we've seen from Matt Turner so far, we don't really have a good shot stopper. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and there's a lot to look for in this in the USMNT's games. Short break here coming up, though. When we come back, we'll do a recap of today's international fixtures.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed the USMNT taking on Panama. We move on to do a recap of today's international fixtures, and we have to start off in CONMEBOL. Uruguay, shocking upset. They lose to Peru, who entered this game bottom of CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers. They now climb to second to last with this win. Winning goal from Miguel Araujo in Peru are able to stun Uruguay. This is Peru's first win of their campaign. This is their first World Cup qualifier win since March of 2022. I have to be surprised. I have to be honest. I'm really surprised with this result. I did not expect it. We know the quality that Uruguay had in this game alone. Uruguay deployed the likes of Darwin Núñez, Di Arrascaeta, Federico Valverde. They had the likes of Pelestri coming off the bench. This is a quality team in Uruguay, and yeah, they got done by a Peru team that hasn't won a single game up to this point, and we know some of the things going on with Bielsa in Uruguay, or some of the perceived things that we've heard from the likes of Suarez, and then Valverde coming out and almost agreeing with him, but yeah, Miguel Araujo, he scored the only goal in the match. It was a header in the 88th minute. Uruguay, so in the past, games, Uruguay, despite, the start of Bielsa's reign at Uruguay seemed, not being entirely too negative. They've, in their last 4 games, they have 3 draws and a loss. The form has not been great in their the last 4 games. They've 3 draws and a loss. Quite frankly, not good enough for the standards. If you go back to the last, last 7 games, they're winless in the last 7 games within the 90 minutes. They beat Brazil in a penalty shootout in the quarterfinal, and Canada in a penalty shootout in the 3rd place match. But within the 90-minute span, in their last 7 games, they are winless. Their last win came against the U.S. when they knocked the U.S. out of the Copa America in that 3rd group stage game. So it's something that, Uruguay need to, you need to get back to where they look like before the Copa America, because I thought they looked like a really, really good team, and they had some big wins. They destroyed Mexico. They went into Argentina and they beat them. They had some really, really good wins here and there, but it's been a little bit stale since then, and it's something that they need to figure out, and Bielsa needs to figure it out. He needs to figure out everything with the Uruguay national team right now. We do move on though. Hungary took on Netherlands. It finished 1-1. Dumfries got a late goal. Van Dijk got sent off in that game. Van Dijk being very, very frustrated with that sending off. We'll get to that. But yeah, Netherlands, Hungary, they finished 1-1. Dumfries rescued the point despite Dutch being down to 10 men at that point. This would have been Hungary's first win over the Netherlands in 40 years. But they couldn't get it done. But they did end a 9 straight defeat run that Dutch had against them, or that they had against the Dutch. So they were able to end that at least. The Netherlands, they had a dominated possession, but they didn't create enough opportunities. They lacked that cutting edge. The Dutch, as the game went on, despite having a lot of possession, not creating much clear-cut opportunities, frustration started growing, and then Van Dijk, he got a yellow card for dissent, and then he got a second yellow in the 79th minute, and he got sent off. But Van Dijk, speaking after the game, he said, "As a captain, I am allowed to talk to the referees. And I did it in a respectful way. With the second one, I gave the referee a reason to give a yellow card." And that's the big thing too. Van Dijk, he can be frustrated with the first yellow card, but at the end of the day, the first yellow card, the dissent, that was the one where he got the yellow card, and he couldn't, they're okay. But when you're on a yellow card, you cannot give the referee an opportunity to give a yellow. And as he acknowledged, he gave the referee to give a yellow, and at the end of the day, that's it. That finished 1-1 with Hungary taking on the Netherlands. Estonia got a 3-1 win over Azerbaijan. Turkey got a 1-0 win over Montenegro. Ukraine got a 1-0 win over Georgia. Slovakia and Sweden finished 2-2. Iceland and Wales finished 2-2. Czechia were able to get past Albania 2-0. In Germany, defeated the likes of Bosnia-Herzegovina 2-1. This is a Germany team in a little bit of transition. They had a lot of players, Germany did, retire over the international break, over the summer. You had Gundogan, Toni Kroos, Manuel Neuer, Thomas Müller, a lot of the veteran old guard, a lot of the players that were involved in the 2014 World Cup run or around that squad at that time. Gundogan, he wasn't involved in that 2014 World Cup run because he was injured, but he was still of that time period. A lot of those players have gone away, and now it's a younger, more youthful team with the likes of Joshua Kimmich now being the captain, him now really being the leader, the veteran of the team. And it was their forward Dennis Undav who scored 2 goals in 6 minutes in a 6-minute period that allowed them to cruise into a 2-1 victory over Bosnia, and it keeps them now on the top of their Nations League group. this is a German national team. Just look at, they have quality, and they were missing players too, like a Musiala, like a Pavlovic, like a full crew that maybe allowed Dennis Undev to get the opportunity to start this game. And they have a good variety in there. They have that Robert Andrich that can do a lot of the dirty work in midfield, playing him next to Joshua Kimmich. You have a Pavlovic that can do something different from Andrich, so it gives you that flexibility there. You got quality. You got the likes of Florian Wirtz and Jamal Musiala, real players, real ability. Kai Havertz, who's playing some really good football for Arsenal. It's a talented side, and under Nagelsmann, they've looked like a formidable outfit, and they want to build a team that can be dominant at the World Cup, because the way that they performed at the European Championship, that was just the start, because they've gone through a really rough run over the past few years or so, and they want to build forward. And in my opinion, they have the necessary tools when it comes to ability and players. Now, goalkeeping is a little bit concerned. Manuel Neuer retired. Ter Stegen, he's gonna be out for a little bit. But he'll be back, and he'll be the star number one and all that. But goalkeeper could be a thing that could hold them that back, because we don't know how great Ter Stegen will be coming back. And there was a little bit some signs already that maybe he might not be quite the player that he was, earlier on in his career. So that's something that they may need to tinker with, figure out a bit. But other than that, this is a talented team. And they didn't play the best game against Bosnia. I think Bosnia is, Bosnia is Bosnia. They're in League A. They're in League A for a reason. They were able to get promoted up there. Haven't had a great start. Not the biggest of opposition. You're playing, a team that, their best player is Edin Dzeko, who's 79 years old. So that's just but 67 international goals for, and by the way, Edin Dzeko got on the score sheet today. 67 international goals for Bosnia is a really impressive feat. He has more international goals now than Didier Drogba, David Villa, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I believe he has more than Thierry Henry does for France. He has more than Thierry Henry for France. That's a great stat there. Short break here coming up. When we come back, though, we will react to some of the top soccer headlines. Before the break, we discussed today's international fixtures. We move on to do a recap or a reaction to some of the top soccer headlines. And we'll start off with where will we start off? There's a few headlines that we can go into direction. We'll say Pochettino's, he was discussing in his press conference, he was talking about Pulisic, and as he described Pulisic as one of the world's best players, but said he was a little concerned about how much he plays for AC Milan, or how much of his workload with his great start to the season. He said, I think he's a fantastic player, one of the best offensive players in the world. I think that we are a little bit worried that sometimes we need to protect Pulisic. We see because he arrived a little bit tired, but that is a thing that I told him before, is to build a very good relationship with the club and try to help. And when we really need him, he needs to be in form, happy, strong, and the quality in there, because he has an enormous talent. Yeah, he is a quality player, and Pulisic had an opportunity to talk to reporters too. He said, it's tough to explain. I think you have moments in your career when it feels like everything you touch goes in, and you have other times when it feels like you're trying everything and the ball just won't go in. As an attacking player, we've all gone through it, so just trying to live in that moment right now when things seem to be going well and just continuing like this. I mean, for me, it's a result of all the work I've put in my life, so it shouldn't be a surprise. I know I have this ability, and just kind of ride that high. Sergio Aguero, he has filed against Barcelona for $3 million in unpaid wages. He has filed a lawsuit against Barcelona over money that's owed to him as part of his 2021 contract termination, and the matter is still in court, and an official report is going to be sent to Barcelona members. Aguero, he joined Barcelona from City on a 2-year deal in 2021, but he had to postpone just after 5 games because he was forced to, not postpone, but he had to retire after 5 games because he suffered a heart problem during their game against Alaves, where he was subbed off. A little bit of a scary moment there. He eventually went on to announce his retirement December of that year, and at the end of 2021, and he reached an agreement with the club to end his contract early. Apparently, there's a report coming out that Barcelona financial accounts for the 23-24 season that was seen by some news outlets revealed that Aguero launched a legal proceeding against the club earlier this year. The report stated, on May 29, 2024, ex-player Sergio Aguero filed a claim for €3 million that, according to him, he is owed as part of the resolution agreement to end his working relationship with the club. As of June 21, 2024, there was no conciliatory agreement between the parties. The club is now waiting for the claim to be processed by a local court for the next step in the procedure. That's interesting there. Something I don't have huge knowledge about, so I'm not really gonna comment till I grasp a little bit more. PSG chef Nasser on Club World Cup, coming out in defense of the new Club World Cup, saying, those who don't want to compete in the tournament, not to play. He said the player or clubs who have complaints, don't play. If you have a complaint, don't play. Before, they complained because there were only 2 clubs, or because there was only 2 per country. Now it's the players. Of course, we have to respect and protect the players, but clubs aren't just in it for the money. It's not like that. That's a mistake. We try to recover the money from their cost. The salaries go up and up, but the competitions are the same and the income is the same. The calendar is a topic of debate. Obviously, it always has been, and to be honest, I believe it's necessary for all the interested parties to get together and discuss it in a prosperous way and see what's best for everyone. All the clubs want to play in the Club World Cup. Hugo Viana is set to be hired by Manchester City as the director of football. City are looking for a replacement when Tiki Begiristain told the club that he'll be stepping down at the end of the season. Sporting Lisbon director of football Vianney was set to be a top choice to step in. Now it's reported that Man City are set to hire him. And there's also hope that he'll be able to get installed by January so he could work alongside Begiristain for the first 6 months until Begiristain steps down, and then Vienna can take over the role. Vienna, he was spent time at Sporting Lisbon. He's had time at Newcastle, so he's also familiar with the Premier League, and also Valencia. And he also, had some appearances for Portugal. Now he was a sporting director for Sporting in 2018, and he oversaw a team that won the Portuguese title in 2021 and 2024, despite some difficult teams going up against the likes of a Benfica and Porto, also in the Portuguese league, that also have pedigree of winning Portuguese trophies. City will go and look like they're probably gonna go into that direction for a manager. Nations League, UEFA Nations League continues over this weekend. Tomorrow you have Lithuania taking on Kosovo. Game I'm really looking forward to this weekend. Croatia taking on Scotland. Bulgaria taking on Luxembourg. Belarus take on Northern Ireland. Poland against Portugal. That's another game I'll be looking forward to tomorrow. Switzerland take on Serbia. Cyprus take on Romania. And Spain taking on Denmark. And then on Sunday, you got Kazakhstan taking on Slovenia, Liechtenstein taking on Gibraltar, Malta taking on Moldova, Finland taking on England, it was a good opportunity, bounce back opportunity for England after that after that really bad disappointment against Greece. North Macedonia taking on Armenia, in Greece taking on Iceland, Faroe Islands taking on Latvia. And then a game I'm looking forward to, Austria taking on Norway, because the last time that game was when Norway got the win. I think Austria want to right that wrong here and put themselves back in good positioning in this Nations League group after that disappointing loss to Austria. So I'm looking forward to that game as well. No CONMEBOL action in World Cup qualifiers. Those games will kick off on Tuesday. You'll have all 5 games on Tuesday, with Colombia taking on Chile, Paraguay taking on Venezuela, Ecuador taking on Uruguay, Argentina taking on Bolivia, and then Brazil. Oh, by the way, Bolivia is flying high on 3 straight wins, albeit all came at their home stadium with the altitude. And then you have Brazil taking on Peru, which, obviously is another must-win sort of scenario for Brazil. So there's that. Apart from that, not much going on this weekend in terms of football. Obviously, we're all looking forward to club football coming back. Oh, there was the Spanish national team coach Luis de la Fuente, who's been in the news now for a few things. He talked about his contract and his frustration with not getting a new contract after the European Championship victory. Now he's discussing about clubs resting players, saying and how he said the club's responsibility to rest the players belongs to the club, not the national teams. When De La Fuente was discussing this, he said, when specifically discussing Lamine Yamal, he said, I speak with Lamine, he's young and we have to manage everyone's minute, but it's difficult with the national team. It's easier to do if I have 70 games to coach, but I have 2 months and we're playing for qualification in every match. There's a FIFA study that says just 3.5% of games played by players are with the national team. So I don't think the responsibility for managing minutes or not falls on the national team. It should fall on those who spend more time with the players. I agree with that notion more than 100%, more than 1,000,000,000%. The national team manager has no responsibility to rest the players because, number one, he has such a short amount of time to prepare going forward, and every game is a magnitude game in the fact that there's not much, international games compared to club games. And, every game is a huge especially if it's a competitive game. I agree with that whole notion 1000%. It is the club's responsibility to rest players. There's no doubt about that. Thank you guys, though, for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. So thank you once again and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.